Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show, the world where I have to do the intro because Clayton and Suj's intros are both shit. My name is James. Hello, Clayton.
My
How are
name
you?
is You're not going to let me say my name. My name is Clayton. Hello.
Yeah, sorry, I did cut that up a little bit. You're meant to dive in, but I wasn't sure if you were going to do it. I thought you might have just gone, oh, I'm not happy with his intro. It's fine. I didn't hear a lot of bad feedback about the intro, though. I think most people agree. So,
If anything, I saw a lot. I read some of the YouTube comments. I saw some love for Suj's intro.
yeah, well, people don't want to upset Suj because he's in a
He's
cartel,
the
isn't
boss,
he?
isn't he? And
Well,
yeah,
he's
he's
in
the
a
cartel
cartel. Yeah,
leader. Yeah,
exactly. Right.
don't mess with him.
On the Clayton and James show this week, we're going to have a little look back at the Monday night football. We're going to discuss some of the football we watched last night, which includes Clayton was at the Emirates. And then we're going to have a look at Clayton's team because Clayton wants the wild card. And I think we need to discuss it out. Then we're going to have a little Euro focus. That's on Chelsea's opponents this week in the Conference League. And then we'll have on this day at the end. Did you watch the Monday night football, Clayton?
I didn't because of you. So I went
It
to I went
wasn't a thriller.
I can't remember what I was doing Monday night, but around like 8:05, I finished whatever I was doing. I was like, oh, there's Monday Night Football. Let me slap it on. And happened to just go on Slack on our Patreon and checked the Match Day Live channel. And I can't remember what you said, but you essentially said, don't bother watching it. So I was like, oh, chill. But then I was bored, so I had nothing to do. So with half hour to go, I slapped the game on. And I think I caught a bit of like end-to-end football, but I was multitasking. So
A bit of entering football. It wasn't a great watch, I think, for the period, purely because you got two teams that are very passive off the ball. They're both happy to let the other team have the ball. And I don't think the two teams are great in terms of progressing. The more interesting aspect of it was Palace, because I felt Palace lined up very differently. The first thing they did is to flip the back three around. Same personnel was in the defeat to Liverpool, but then moved Lacroix to the centre of it, Gay to left-sided centre back, and Chalobah to right-sided centre back. So all three of them moved around position. I felt it helped them a little bit in terms of like Mark Gay's really comfortable stepping out. So that helped them a little bit. And I think it also helped them gain an element of control, actually, particularly sort of in the first half hour or so, because of what happened ahead of the pitch, which I think Forest had problems dealing with because Palace setup was a little bit different. So we used to them having sort of Eze in left half space and last year Olise right half space. They can both drift wide. They can both go into 10 positions. It basically played 5-3-2. It was 100% that off the ball, but it was more on in possession. It was basically like a back three and almost like a diamond in front of that, where Lerma was sitting as the pivot. And Eze was like right up top with Nketiah, but would naturally drop short. And when he dropped short, it meant that the two wide central midfielders, Kamada from the left and Hughes from the right, were allowed to go and go beyond. And there was a little period where I think Forest really struggled with that numerically in central areas. That was the interesting aspect of the game. That said, they were a bit kind of powder puff in front of goal, and the majority of the best chances in the game fell to Forest, and specifically Chris Wood,
I
who I
heard he,
think now
yeah.
scored the third most goals in the league since Nuno joined Forest. I think.
Oh wow,
I
fair
think
play.
so.
I saw his goal, like Dean Anderson. We'll talk about that in a second,
Oh,
but
don't get me started on
yeah,
that bloke, mate. Honestly,
but yeah, apparently Chris Wood had a good few chances in that game.
yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. Had a couple within about a minute in the first half. He had another one was a beautiful ball in. I can't remember who played the cross actually, and it was one of them. He's stretching to get it like on the volley. Can't put no power on it. He's just hope he's going to divert it, and he just diverted it straight into Henderson's hands, which still has a chance of going in. I don't want to criticize. They're playing us this weekend.
Yeah, you
I,
know
I
what's
don't
gonna
want to say
happen.
anything more about it.
I'll do
He's
it
like
for you.
15 saves on Sunday, mate.
Yeah, that's just poor, isn't it? But it feels like a consistent theme with him, where I
He
just
has a
don't.
problem with long range shooting, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Is that a positioning thing? Is that the strength of his hand when he gets contact with the ball? I don't know.
I don't know if it's a visual thing because
Possibly.
when he basically dives on his arm, lands on top of the ball. So his
Yeah.
hand, he's not saving it with his hand. It's almost like underneath, like his arm. Really
Yeah,
weird one.
he's a strange one. Because I think he looks fairly comfortable with the ball at his feet. I wouldn't say he's excellent with it, but I'd say
No,
he
I
looks
definitely wouldn't.
really. I think he looks okay with it. But when he's in goal, I just think he looks quite
Small.
frail and small, yeah. And yeah, shot stopping wise, like you say, yeah, it's a bit of a problem for him. So he's a strange one considering how highly rated he was a few years ago.
Pressure is building on Glasner now.
Big time, big time, yeah.
He
At what?
said after the game, he said that it wasn't about how we set up was the reason for defeat. He said it's a mentality issue. And I
Okay,
always worry when managers say that because I think, well, if there's a mentality issue, that's on you.
yeah. But then what? It feels like such a 180 from what he was doing when he first came in.
Phenomenal.
What's changed? I mean,
Well,
obviously they've lost two huge players.
but they chose to let Anderson go. It's not like they got bullied by a big club. And in fact, they held off Newcastle from Mark Gay, right?
Yeah.
So he must have been relatively happy to let Joachim Anderson go for whatever their reason was. At least say you understand, and that he's doing great at Bayern Munich. So you understand that one completely, and you can't replace that. I think Rory, our Palace correspondent, made a really good point when we did COTC a couple of weeks ago about the profile of players they bought feeling like they weren't right for the system that
Okay.
Glasner wanted to play. Now, Kamada's obviously a player he knows well, so that's that. But it was a free transfer as well, so it's no risk. But Sarr is a completely different profile player to Elise, and then Ketcher's nothing like Mateta. He also said he said this before they played Leicester that, a club like Palace don't spend 25 to 30 odd £1 million to player for him not to play. So Nketiah's now ahead of Mateta. I think Eze looks better when Mateta's in the team, having that target that it can kind of absorb for him and then play with him. It's just not really working
No.
at the moment, and getting feelings with them that don't feel as difficult to beat as they should be. Like, to be honest, my apprehension about Tottenham playing them at the weekend is only that they haven't won yet. In a weird way, I'm
So
like,
you're
oh,
psychologically thinking, oh,
a
when's it
little
gonna come?
bit.
Yeah.
But
But
I
as
look at it and I think with to play like that again, we shouldn't really have too many problems.
yeah, it's I get that Elise and Anderson are big misses, and you spoke about their Anderson perhaps them choosing to let him go and being happy with their options, but is that should it be such a drastic change?
I mean, he's clearly going to miss Elise. And I spoke about this quite a lot last year about Eze and Elise for fantasy and them feeling like they needed each other.
Yeah, you did to be fair.
And Eze's not scored, we scored one this season, which was a goal from long range against Chelsea, right? So they're not scoring. I don't mind the fact that they changed the system tactically. I actually think it gave them some control in the game early on. Didn't overly really feel like they were going to score. Sells made one really good save from Jeffrey Schluck because he was quite unsighted in the second half. He's ended up with a bit of a FPL haul. And defensively wise, yeah, it's only 8 games gone, and they have had one of the best fixture runs over that period. Their defensive numbers are good. And I see people are selling Raya, and I think people might be looking at sells. The only caveat I'd have is like next couple are good, right? Leicester away, West Ham at home. But then from Newcastle, not from Newcastle at home in 11, they go to you in 12. From that period up until the March international break, which is obviously a really long time, over that whole period, I'd have them bottom of the ticker,
Oh wow, okay.
which then I'd like, how much do I want to invest in the goalkeeper from that perspective? Like you look at, I think, oh, sells that might be all right. You can save £1 million there, move stuff about, which on what we've seen so far, you'd go, yes, it is worth the saving. But I look at things like Arsenal away 12, City away 14, Man United away 15, Villa at home in 16. I think, yeah, it looks all right for the next couple. I don't know if I want that longer term. Whereas you invest in something like a Milenkovic, and you can obviously rotate that with something else, feels like probably a better way maybe to invest in them. Because although, say, Raya looks shy on the next three because you've Arsenal got 3 difficult fixtures, then you think, oh, I'd be happy to have him.
Yeah.
So it might be a case of a bit of short-term pain with something like that. But yeah, I think that defensive wise, you'd go and get involved in them. There's the other caveat to Wood. Is yeah, the numbers are great, but then if you're buying him, does it feel really short term? Like again, it's kind of thinking about the outcome. If you invest now and if he doesn't score against Leicester and West Ham, despite the fact the numbers are really good since Nuno joined, do you look at the fixtures afterwards and go, oh, yeah, shite. He's got Arsenal and City away as 2 of the next 4. What I'd say about Amy is he's talisman at the moment.
Yeah.
And Forest can win games 1-0 and he'll score a goal, or even they can lose 3-1 and he'll score a goal. It feels a bit like that at the moment.
What would the advice be then for people that don't own Wood? given that information you just said about their fixture difficulties from game week 12 to was it the March international break you said?
Yeah, so that's going up to sort of like game at 29.
Yeah. I mean, that's a long period. Like, you don't need to nail your
Yeah,
colours to the
he
mast and own
listen.
him for that whole time.
we
But
we're talking about a long period here where we're going back to mid-December, where he's been the third highest scorer in the league. So if people want to go and invest it in at his price, like I'm not going to give you a reason not to. He's performing a lot better than other people at his value. I would just say that actually for me now, he's probably not on radar, and I'm sure he probably will do well in the next couple. But I'd probably be thinking a little bit longer. If I'm buying Wood or Cunha at this moment, I'm still looking at Cunha's fixtures longer term. Would still be like a preference for me. I recognise Wood is a little bit cheaper as well at the moment. A note on Eze before we finish on the game. I thought he was pretty pony,
on
and,
Monday, yeah.
and I'm not talking about his overall output and stuff because when he gets on the ball in the final third, you know what his capability is. I was watching him quite closely, and I'm not sure he's really putting the effort in for the team at the moment, which again I
Okay.
think is really dangerous because he could go and destroy my team on Sunday.
Yeah.
He's not quite at it at the moment. He looks like he's, I'm going to say labouring. Just don't think he's quite putting in 100% at the moment. They're
Do you,
giving off that vibe, and I've never had that vibe off him before.
do you reckon he's
Especially
feeling a bit deflated around it all?
he might do, yeah, because ultimately as well, he's obviously started. He's not going to stay there, but also if he's going to perform like that, the big clubs won't go and get him.
They might be put off.
Yeah, honestly, and that's because of off the ball stuff. Not when he gets on the ball, wonderful. Like I've described him as probably the most enjoyable player to watch in the league as a neutral. But I was watching him aesthetically off the ball, both with and when Palace are in and out of possession Monday night. I think you're not doing enough here. He's their best player by miles, isn't he?
Yeah.
So you're relying on him. But it also felt an element of that in terms of the changing of the system as well, was almost protecting him so he didn't have to be part of go into left sided midfield positions where it goes into a 5-4-1 off the ball. Like that wasn't happening. We're leaving him up top with Nketiah off the ball. The two of them haven't quite got the chemistry right yet. It was definitely, in fairness, a couple of times Nketiah should have played Eze back in and didn't. So that's not quite right yet. So get yourself down the bookies and get money on Palace to beat Tottenham on Sunday, kids. But
Just one
I'd be
final one
I'd be
on
tempted to sell him on what I watched there. And I had a
really.
discussion with one of our patrons yesterday, and I said I'd probably hold. Not yesterday, sorry, before the game on Monday. I'd be questioning that, but I would never tell someone to sell a player before they're playing
No,
Tottenham. That's
of
what I'm
course.
saying.
Yeah, it's so weird because I look at the upcoming fixtures and I still think as an asset, I'm like, "Ooh, I wouldn't mind buying him, but from what you said there, I'm very put off. Just the final one on Palace. 8 games, 0 wins, 3 points. At what point do they start to get concerned and think about the dreaded R
I
word?
think that concerns there
Oh, is it already? Yeah.
because of what I'm saying about if you're looking at something like Eze aesthetically on Monday off the ball and going, is he at it? Like if he's not, that's going to have a real detrimental impact on the rest.
What about Glasner? Any danger he
Yeah, I think
falls?
he is
Yeah.
because if they're not playing for him, you can look at the end of last season and go, great, yeah, fine. That was Mateta and Lise in the team and Anderson, and they're not there now at the moment. I think they should put Mateta back in the team, personally. You look at the next three, there's Tottenham at home, Wolves away, Fulham at home. Okay, average. Then it gets quite tough for them, you know.
Yeah, Villa away will be tough. Newcastle home, they're a mixed bag at the minute. Ipswich away, but then City at home
Yeah, and then a couple after that, he's Arsenal as well. So
and
then
Brighton
after
away as
City,
well.
Brighton away, and then Arsenal at home. So as a collective, it's becoming a tough run of fixtures for them. So yeah, I keep an eye on that suddenly. It's a weird one, but he doesn't look happy. He's not giving off vibes. And when he came in, and actually, I think they drew at Forest, and he's like, and they drew. And do you remember he made that statement afterwards? And he was like, people told me it's all right to draw away in the Premier League. Like he came in with that real kind of winning mentality.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel like it's there at the moment.
Yeah. One to keep an eye on.
Yeah, interesting. Last night's football. I watched a couple of games, which I'll touch on, not
Kind
in
of wish I
huge
watched the
detail.
ones you watched, to be
Well,
honest.
we'll get to your team last. I watched Milan against Bruges, and I wanted to watch Milan. That was an earlier kickoff. I wanted to watch it because I watched them against Liverpool, and they were so pony. I thought, let me give it another chance because a few games afterwards, they beat Inter. in the derby, which was technically an away game from the San Siro. Let me give them another chance, see if they're any better. No, they're pony.
What makes you say that?
I know they won this, but Bruges were the better side for the first half hour or so. Milan went in front through Christian Pulisic scoring from a corner, which was terribly defended. And then not long afterwards, Bruges had Rafael Onyedika sent off. And it was the right decision. It took bloody ages, by the way, on VAR. It's always so quick in Europe. No, it took bloody ages. In fact, the funny one about this red card is the referee actually originally gave Onyedika the decision. He went in for a challenge, I think, with Reinders, who scored twice and played well for Milan. He actually originally gave the free kick his way, and it was a red card against on your dick. It was one of them.
Wow.
He's over the top. He's studs on top of his ankle late on. I don't think he meant it, but once you saw it, was like, yeah, he's going to walk here. So you think, well, 1-0 up against 10 men, not played too well. Okay, would have gone dominate here. No.
No.
Bruges equalised early in the second half. And actually, Milan, Paulo Fonseca is under a little bit of pressure there. He took Rafael Leao off. Milan scored about 10 seconds later. So they're all celebrating, and Leao's walking behind the goal as they score. He looks vexed, mate. Leao.
Oh yeah.
You can imagine he's thinking, I'm key man here. You've taken me off. 1-1 against 10 men at home. And he got taken off and scored straight away, which was well assisted by Okafor, who essentially had come on and replaced him. They went on to win 3-1. So they go and win like routinely in the end. But you'd expect that against Bruges with 10. I thought Bruges played all right, actually. There's a nice story in this at the end. So they had a goal disallowed in the last minute or so, scored by Francesco Camada. Heard of him before, Clates?
Don't think so, no.
No, you probably won't have, mate. 'Cause he's 16.
Oh, wow.
So he gets on the end of a cross, scores this brilliant header, and like he proper goes nuts, right? As you can imagine, shirts come off, the whole lot. He's a local boy, rare, 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 rare. Anyway, you saw the replay and it's sinking in. It's offside, isn't he? Like,
Ah,
oh
no.
no. So because he's taking his shirt off, he's got booked as well. So poor lad, yeah, 16 years
What
old.
was that his debut? Must be, right?
But he kind of played much, but it would have been his first goal. I know that. Yeah, disallowed, unfortunately. Then I watched a breathtaking game of football in the evening. I was umming and ahhing whether to watch Villa or whether to watch Real Madrid against Dortmund. And I thought, do you know what? Let me give this whole format the reason it's in place, the right decision here. And let's watch a rerun of last year's final, right? So it got to a period, I would say the last 15, 20 minutes of the first half was the best bit of football I've seen all season. I'm just trading
Wow.
blows at each other. And Madrid, you look watching Madrid and you're going individually, personnel wise, so much quality here, right? At any point, but just it's so vulnerable. And we've seen it so many times in the last few years. You're like,
Yep.
they're so vulnerable. They're quite easy to play against. They've got so much individual talent. They basically can't press you with any form of structure. So they just funnel into like this 4-4-2 off the ball and positionally zone themselves. And they're quite happy, even in the Bernabeu, to let teams have the ball. Dortmund went in front. Your boy, Jamie Bino Gittens, scored a second goal quite quickly afterwards. The first one was brilliant, assisted by Jurassi for Daniel Marlon. He scored twice in 5 minutes, right? And even in this period where Madrid like get a bit lively and start throwing stuff back, which included one incredible moment where Vinicius Jr. hit the bar, and then from the rebound, Jude Bellingham hit the bar as well.
Ah,
Dortmund was still having chances at the other end as well. So I think what happened at half time was Dortmund got themselves in a position, and it's like, we're going to keep trading blows with this lot, or we're going to say, right, we're 2-0 up here and we'll start changing things.
would you say they were deservedly 2-0 up at half time?
I think they deserved their lead for their bravery that they'd shown in the game. If you look at the statistics, it's fairly level for the first half. But the fact that it's the away team in the Bernabeu, yeah, they deserve to be in front. By two, questionable. But yeah, they deserved their lead. Madrid battered them in the second half. It was just an onslaught. Vinicius Jr. was unplayable. You couldn't have stopped him. I think if it had been Pete Carl Walker last night, Vinicius Jr. would have turned him inside out.
Really, when
And
he's on
and
it, he's such a joy to watch, isn't he?
I mean, he overshadowed Mbappe in a big way last night. I said to you before we started, the second goal he got, which is really badly defended from Dortmund, it's a 3-2 and they're a little bit stretched. By this point, they brought Emery Chan on at right back because Julian Rice just couldn't deal with him anymore, basically at right back. So we'll put an experienced player there. Yeah, as soon as first time Vinicius Jr. got the ball, Chan went to him and he nutmegged him and went beyond him. But this one was up in Real Madrid's third, and the ball's broke to Vinicius Jr. and he's wrong side of Chan. And it's like, you ain't catching him, mate.
Yeah, yeah,
And Chan
gone.
like gives up on it and he just runs and runs and runs. He cuts inside, he gets to the edge of the box. And as he's shooting, he's 25 yards out. You think he's going to score. He just wraps it in bottom corner. And it was one that I felt like getting out of the chair and clapping because it was so deserved. It was his second goal of the game. Then he scores another one, brilliant late on again to obviously complete his hat trick. It's largely been rumored over the last couple of days that he's going to win the Ballon d'Or. And on that performance last night, it wasn't like Ballon d'Or, Ballon d'Or, Ballon d'Or, but he was brilliant.
I bet Rio was shouting that last night, to be fair, based on how you're describing his performance.
Yeah, they were joyous to watching that second half. It was watching a good team try and defend the lead against the Galacticos,
Yeah.
trying to chase against it. As said, they were kind of 4-4-2 without the ball. Rodrigo played on the right, Vinicius Jr. left, and Mbappe through the middle, and obviously Bellingham really joined in to join in with Mbappe within possession. He was really underwhelming, and I know there's
Okay.
been a bit of focus on him because he hasn't scored for Madrid last year, and the numbers last year were ridiculous.
You
But
say he
yeah,
hasn't scored for Madrid this year?
he stood out. Yeah, he stood out for wrong reasons last night.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't to the level of those around him. They
Was
might
that
be,
just a one-off game,
maybe,
isolation?
maybe, but it was just on the periphery. It was like you knew at any moment he could arrive in the box he did with that rebound in the first half and maybe score, but he was on the periphery of it. Rodrigo, Mbappe, and Vinicius Jr. were carrying them. The two fullbacks got really high. I mean, Lucas Vasquez, who's standing in for obviously Danny Carvajal, who's out for the season, scored essentially the winning goal, which actually came about after Rodrigo had done brilliant work to keep the ball in play, pulled his hamstring in the process of doing so. And I think he's played it back to Vasquez. And if Rodrigo hadn't started walking off the pitch, I think Vasquez would have given the ball back.
Oh,
But
well.
because he was out, he thought, well, I'll have to come inside now. And he tried to play a ball inside, and a Dortmund player blocked it, which became a 1-2. And
Ha!
then Vasquez went through and buried it. It was quite ironic. Yeah, brilliant.
And
That's the sort of game I've been critical of the format. But when you watch that, it's like, yeah, I get it.
yeah, if you can get games like that in the kind of new league stage, then yeah, it does
I
feel
was saying to the
exciting.
guys on Slack, like clearly, if you were a Villa fan, you were going to watch Villa, or if you were watching Arsenal, you were going to watch Arsenal. But I was saying to the guys on Slack quite early on in the game, I said, if you're not watching this game, get this game on. It just felt like it was going to be brilliant, and it was.
Yeah, I feel like if unless your team was playing last night, looking at those fixtures, I don't know many people that wouldn't have watched that game. That looked like the standout fixture comfortably for me yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit. I would say this tournament hasn't got jeopardy, but actually for Madrid, had they lost,
Oh, mate, at half time, I was looking at the league table thinking, are they in trouble here?
I think
Well,
they'd have
in
been in
trouble.
trouble. But had they lost last night, you'd have been looking at them and thinking they're going to really struggle to make the top eight, like losing to Lille and Dortmund because of the games coming up soon. I mean, Milan at home next, by the way, they won't have any problems with. But then after that, they go to Anfield.
Yeah, I can't
Still got
wait
to
to
go
watch
to
that game.
Atalanta as well. So they would have been putting themselves in a position of potential real danger had they not got the result last night. But yeah, I mean, what happened in that second half, they absolutely deserved it in the end.
They're such a weird team, aren't they? Like,
2.41 XG in the second half, five big
wow.
chances, 17 shots to two.
You know what you said earlier about like some games, even in La Liga, they'll kind of sit off, let the other team have possession. I remember I was watching their game, I think it was against like Espanyol in September, and they went 1-0 down, but they ended up winning it 4-1. And I remember watching that first, I think it was the first hour where it was 0-0, then they went 1-0 down. And I was watching them and thinking, structurally, they just look very meh. And then, boom, the Galacticos come into play. It's like the Avengers get the call up, and
It
it's
was a
quite.
bit like that last night.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is a joy to watch, to be fair. I think in this world of modern coaching where everything is so systematic and stuff, it is quite nice to just see. get your best players on the pitch and let them do their thing.
Well, the other thing with the fact that they sit off and are happy to let people build territory is if when they get it back, if they can go, I mean, there's so much speed on the counter attack and stuff. And as I said, the fellow on the left, you just wouldn't have stopped him last night. It's
He's
incredible.
phenomenal. I love watching him.
Yeah, that's the best individual performance I've seen from a footballer in quite some time, I think.
I need to
Yeah,
go rewatch that game, I think.
really good. You were at the Emirates.
One game I do not want to rewatch is Arsenal 1, Shakhtar Donetsk nil. Jesus
Was it
Christ.
is this just boring Arsenal now, Clates? Is that what this is?
Mate, I'm concerned, I'll be honest, especially if Saka's
Good.
out.
Brilliant. Love it. Great.
When Odegaard was first out, I was optimistic about our ability to find solutions, and I think we dealt with it well in kind of Tottenham away, Atalanta away, City away under the circumstances. But now with Saka being out on Saturday, obviously you've covered the Arsenal Bournemouth game on the main pod, but
Just to
last
clarify,
night,
you're talking about the week gone.
sorry,
You're,
yeah,
you're not saying that he's out for this coming weekend, yeah?
correct, yeah,
Just
I
for
was just
clarity.
talking
Yeah.
retrospectively. Watching the two games without him and Odegaard, yeah, I'm really concerned. We look very toothless in attack. There's no one to kind of link between defense and attack, and we get into the final third, and I can only describe it as toothless. Last night, and even I hadn't looked at the stats. I've just got them in front of me. So like expected goals. I mean, we did have a penalty which Trossard missed, which will inflate this. Expected goals were 1.82 to Shakhtar's zero point 0.7, but there were significant and sustainable periods where Shakhtar were going through the thirds with ease. And that for me was an alarm bell because I think Liverpool on Sunday are a team with better quality. If they're getting through the thirds, yeah, I'm very concerned. I think the drop off without Odegaard and Saka is huge. I think I would back us to cope without just Odegaard, but without Saka as well, I'm very concerned. And yeah, looking at the fixtures coming up, obviously Liverpool at home, Newcastle away, Chelsea away. That's the kind of block until the international break I'm assessing. But yeah, it's not great offensively. It's not looking good. Like I say probability wise of Arsenal scoring more than 2 goals in a Premier League game in that block I mentioned without Odegaard and if Saka is out. Yeah, it's not
So
good.
Arteta's comments last night, and I've watched it, and it's not clear whether he says helpful or hopeful.
I've not seen it to be fair, so you're gonna have to tell me what it is.
I mean, he's basically saying if you took Arteta on face value, you probably think he was out this weekend coming against Liverpool. Like the one thing we do know, and we know this factually anyway, is he's not trained.
Sure. So
At
what did he
this
say,
point in
sir?
time,
He's
we know that. He said, it wasn't clear if he said, I'm not being helpful, i.e., I'm taking the piss out of you, or I'm not hopeful.
ah.
It wasn't quite clear.
Are there any transcripts doing the rounds?
Well, yeah, same. Some are helpful and some are hopeful. So, but he wasn't saying I'm hopeful. It was more like I'm not hopeful or I'm not helpful. It is, I'm not going to help you. I'll tell you, we know that anyway, right?
Yeah.
So again, if you took him at face value, you'd think he ain't going to play this weekend.
My
And do you know what that makes me think?
He's got to play.
He'll be back in training today.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I get concerned when a player's not in the squad at all with a game in a few days. So that's what makes me slightly concerned, thinking surely he would have been in the squad. But
The other thing is his hamstring, right? Now, if
mm,
it's just tightness, fine. But then if it was just tightness, I'm now thinking, right, well, that game against Greece for England is from time of us talking now is what, 13 days ago?
yeah, around that.
Yeah, 13 days ago. Right. It's not tightness. If he's played 12 days now without training, it's
That's
not
more than
tightness.
tightness. Yeah.
Yeah, can't be. Now, I just feel like if someone's had a hamstring problem that is beyond tightness, you're generally looking at a minimum 3 weeks,
Yep, agree with that.
often 4 weeks. If it's bad, you start going into the beyond a month and the 6 weeks and stuff like that. Now, there's no indication that it's bad because I think we'd know, I feel. But I also think if you're on that 3 week timeline, he's got to be a massive doubt for Sunday. And I think it's probably just enough now that from a fantasy perspective, I go, John, what them 3 fixtures are rough anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's the oh,
I'll
sorry, go
I'll
on.
disappear off into something, and if I want to go back, I'll go back. That's kind of my take now.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat to be honest, and I think that's one of the reasons that's making me debate the wild card. But we'll talk about that in a sec. But yeah, game wasn't great last night. It was just a case of job done on to the next. But yeah, I'm quite concerned about this upcoming period if we're without both him and Odegaard.
And
Timber wasn't.
there's a
Sorry.
huge concern for Sunday
Oh,
against
big time.
Liverpool
If
with
to the point
Timber's not
where
trained yet. And have you seen the Calafiori incident?
I've not seen the incident actually. No, I was in the ground, but
There's every chance he's done damage there, mate.
oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, no, I've not seen the incident, but I'm very concerned for Sunday. I think before the Calafiori news, it was a case of if Timber and Saka were fit, I would have backed us. I think as well as Odegaard being out, Saka potentially being out, Timber potentially out. What you said about Calafiori there, that doesn't sound great. I don't feel confident in our left back options against Mohamed Salah. Tomiyasu's out, and historically we've played him there.
Yeah,
That's a miss. I don't feel good going into this with the information I've got right now around injuries. Yeah,
that is potentially, I'm going to guess. Was Zinchenko in the squad last night?
he was, but he didn't come on. We played Miles Lewis Skelly actually came on for Calafiori.
What is he as a player?
Who
Position?
Miles Lewis Skelly for
Yeah.
the youth team, he was always a six, but I think going up into the men's team, they're playing him in that kind of inverted left back role. But Jesus Christ, like I do
You wouldn't
not,
want him to play against Salah.
no chance.
I mean, if Calafiori was out on top of Timber, maybe with Tomiyasu out and Saliba obviously suspended. I mean, what is that? Is that Gabriel and White at centre back, with Party right back, and Zinchenko left back?
I think so. Or as another alternative, Rice at centre back,
I
and
wouldn't do that, mate.
neither would I. I'm just trying to think of
Purely
what
because you want
other.
him in the middle of the pitch. Rice and Jorginho played well together, by the way, when you beat Liverpool in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
winter period.
I don't think Jorginho will come into the team for this one,
Well,
but
he might
yeah,
have to
that
if Party plays at fullback, mate.
I think Marino might come in ahead of Jorginho. Just because we haven't seen Jorginho get minutes, Marino came on last night. Yeah, we talk a
Would you
lot
take a draw
about
Sunday if I offered it to you now?
right now with the information I've got on the injuries. Absolutely, I'd be a fool not to. Like it's like we talk a lot about when the right time to play a team is, right? I think right now this is the best time to be playing Arsenal. It's yeah, really glass half
In
empty right
terms
now.
of reading the game as well, kids, here's the news that you already knew. You ain't going to know how many of these Arsenal players are absent for Sunday.
No,
Might
yeah, I
might be
doubt
we
it.
get the Sunday is like, oh, that team's a bit stronger than expected.
Yeah, possibly, but yeah, I don't know. We may get through other journalist things on like the non-FPL interesting players. So if Tomiyasu's available, if Timber's there and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think we'll get anything on Saka. It is interesting though on the kind of opposite narrative because he said Arteta said he was close or hopeful for Bournemouth or something, didn't he? And then he wasn't in the squad. So uh, I can't confess to remember what his track record is with Saka and his presses. But if the opposite narrative seems to have track, then yeah, maybe we look at that.
Yeah, it feels like a big period for you
Yeah,
coming up.
like how many times have I said the word concern in the last 5 minutes? Yeah, and I'd say I'm probably one of the most optimistic Arsenal fans you could ever find.
You're all deluded, mate.
Are we?
Yes, you are. Um,
Why?
let's move on. Enough Arsenal stuff now, right? Just a shout out for Villa. We're not spoken about because neither of us watched it, but obviously great result again last night,
Top of the
beating
table.
Bologna 2-0. Top of the table as it
Yeah,
stands
fair
now.
play.
Although 5:45 kids tune into Brest versus Leverkusen. Clayton's taking his water sip at the very wrong time there because the winner of that you might find a tie be quite interesting if Stade Brest are top of the Champions League table after 3 game weeks. You might remember Arsenal being invincible. Clay, so were you too young for that?
Oh, was there?
I'm going to just briefly tell you about something that happened in Sweden. Are you aware of this?
I
Because
saw it on Slack. Yeah.
oh man, it's going to ruin it. But it won't ruin it for the listeners and the viewers anyway. Angel Holmes in the women's fourth division. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Sorry to our Scandinavian listeners and viewers. 115, drawn 3, lost 0 of their 18 games. Invincible, but didn't win the league.
Crazy. God, tell us more. Tell the stats, the goals.
But that's not the best bit. This surely, and this is legit. I've gone and searched this myself because I didn't believe. I was like, it's impossible. So from these 18 games, they finished second. They won 15, drew 3, lost 0. Scored 78 goals. Mighty impressive. They conceded none.
How do you do that and not win the league?
Absolutely bonkers. Leondibi Heads won 16, drew 1, lost 1, scored 121 goals, conceded 14. I mean, what a phenomenal achievement. I don't care the quality of the opposition to play 18 games of football and not concede a single goal. And you've still not won the league. How do you explain that?
How do you pick a team up after that as well?
Absolutely incredible. I just wanted to get that in because that really amused me this week. Right, talk to me about your FPL team, Clay. So I tell you what, but while you think about what you want to say, I'm going to read the bus team that you sent me
Okay.
for the benefit of those on the audio. So Henderson in goal, back three of Gabriel, Lewis, Porro, midfield five of Rogers, Bumo. We've got a very flagged Saka, and we've also got a flagged Jota and Minter. Up front, Solanke and Captain Haaland. You have Trent on the bench. You also have Fabianski, João Pedro, and Valentin Barco. So look, you can put Trent in the team and you can take one of them flags out, right?
Yep. I just don't like my team, to be
Okay.
honest. And
So you're thinking of wildcarding.
yeah, just because I haven't had a specific week in mind for Wildcard. It was I always like to start the season with a team that I think is good for a few weeks and then use the wildcard when I need it, rather than this is the optimal time with the fixture swings and this and that. And I just look at my team right now and I think it's arrived in a position where it needs a bit of surgery. I don't like my goalkeeper in Henderson. Midfield, Jota is someone that week to week, I think I said this last week, and the same with Minter. I'm kind of going on Emma Jump the Waves timeline, looking at the hive minds, and I can't be asked with that headache every week. And I think the flags are there to kind of force me into a decision. Trent, I think for this week, like Arsenal could be a decent fixture for them now with some of the injuries. But then after, I just don't look at the upcoming run and think there's many clean sheets in there, to be honest. And I mean, he can deliver an assist or a return in any game. But then João Pedro, there's flag. Barco, I've obviously had all season. I don't have a playing reserve goalkeeper. I think it's a combination of there's flags and like suboptimal players, as well as the opportunity to jump on people that I probably can't get to, and just restructure my team nicely at the minute. But you weren't keen on it, is
No,
it?
I'm really not.
Why is that? Because I think that team is pony I've got right now.
I'm not saying it's not, but I don't think it's a time to wildcard. I've described this period of 9 to 11 as being a bit of a dead space. It's a dead space because the majority of the top teams have really tough fixtures where, particularly, Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool play each other. Newcastle got to play Chelsea and Arsenal. It's a tough run of fixtures for Villa. Have got to go to Tottenham and Liverpool. It's tough. If you're a Semenyo owner, Villa away, City at home, you might want to really
Yeah.
look at a player like that in a couple of weeks. Brighton have got Liverpool and Man City, two of their next three. You might really want to have a look at them on the other side. It feels like a dead space. The teams with the best fixtures now are Brentford's, Wolves, Fulham, Everton, Leicester, Manchester United. You can put in there as well beyond the next two. And even United's next two is West Ham away, Chelsea at home. Doesn't like scream at you.
No.
That's why I don't like it. I also think, in terms of the core of what you have here, Clates, I think for the next few weeks, you've got seven good players.
Okay.
In fact, I think you've got eight because I put Trent in there as well, who I overlooked. So that back four of Trent, Gabriel, Lewis, and Porro is fine. There is
Yeah.
speculation this morning, which I haven't seen confirmed yet, by the way, that Cole Walker might be out for a few weeks.
Oh, okay. So
It's probably going to make you
Lewis's
pretty
minutes.
safe on Rico Lewis in the near future as well. Rogers this week particularly is absolutely fine. I realise there's a couple of difficult ones coming up. Bumo's great. Solanke for the next three is fine. Haaland, I mean, this is the other thing. You can't wildcard now and go without Haaland.
Oh, I'd keep him in and then maybe look to do two because I've got two frees at the minute. So if I wild carded,
So you
I'd kind
can't
of
play it your way. But I mean, you're going to wildcard and take Haaland out,
if
Southampton at home. I
if I
don't think you
wild
would.
carded, he'd be in there. And like I said, I've got the two frees on the other side. I'd find a way to then move him to Salah. On Solanke quickly, I've not listened to any content this week yet. Do you have any thoughts on him? I've seen a lot of narratives doing
Chill,
around, and yeah,
chill. Next three fixtures are fine. Absolutely fine. reassess that in game week 12. And I think whatever Tottenham assets you've got, you're probably going to want to reassess it in game week 12. But over the next three, Palace away, bear in mind what I've said. Villa at home are the sort of team we can get in behind because they're quite brave with the high line, and Ipswich at home. So the next three for the attacking guys, particularly, and I include Pedro Porro in that, I think it's pretty good. So that's not an issue in the immediate. Arsenal, Liverpool guys going for their consistency and stuff anyway. I just think you'd be wild carding into something. The big thing for me is you wild card into something here and you want to change to something different. So, how many free transfers you got?
I've got two.
You got two. How much money in the bank?
0.7.
Okay. So a little bit of money in the bank. That back four is fine, mate.
Agree on
Trent,
the back four.
Gabriel, Lewis, Porro in the immediate, in this dead space period is fine. Goalkeeper's the goalkeeper. And actually, over the next three as well, like Palace fixtures have said, Tottenham at home, Wolves away, Fulham at home. It's not terrible. There's two home games in there, and the away game is against Wolves. So the goalkeeper is not, I get it, you want to change that, but it's not an immediate concern. In fact, 12 is a good exit point for him as well. So you've got 9 starters this week. Minter, you don't know where you stand. If Minter's given the thumbs up, he's Wolves at home, mate.
Yeah,
Play him.
true. True.
And suddenly you're in a position where I'd go, you've got 10 fine players this week.
Saka
And
to Palmer.
you just deal with Saka and Jota. And at that point, you can even still make your decision to go, I don't want to play Trent or Gabriel this week, or I'm concerned about Minter. I don't play him. It's not costing you anything with hits. And you structure yourself a little bit better. Also, you can attack some things that maybe others wouldn't if you are looking at 12. So you could go in more specific at the moment. It doesn't have to be Minter you move, right? It doesn't even have to be Saka and Jota. You could go, I'm going to go Barco to Visser. I can go Barco to, I can go, not Barco. Did I say Barco? I meant
Yeah.
João Pedro, sorry.
Okay.
João Pedro to Visser or João Pedro to Raul Jimenez.
Yeah.
You can do these sort of things. You'd think, not long-term moves, they're just going to get me out of this problem in the immediate. You could go Minter to Calvert-Lewin. You could even probably.
You're confusing me with the different positions. You said Minter to Calvert-Lewin.
I meant McNeil. What's wrong with me? Right. More water, sorry.
Yeah,
Talk
Minter
some
to
shit tonight.
McNeil.
I mean, João Pedro to Calvert-Lewin, Minter to McNeil. You could even do something like Jota to McNeil.
Yeah.
Might even get you like Saka to Salah.
That's interesting, to be fair. Like you said,
can,
if
you can obviously go Saka to Palmer, and you can go Jota to whatever you like. Like, I mean, Garnacho's on radar for me, for example.
yeah, and then suddenly the bus team for this week, if Minter's green flag, just flag removed, and then I deal with Jota and Saka or Saka
Punt
and
Brennan
Pedro.
Johnson, even. It's fine, isn't it? That's another one
Yeah.
in that value, Brennan Johnson over the next three. I get it. You might go to Tottenham, free Tottenham. But if you commit to wildcarding in 12 to get out of this, I think that's a better play for you, mate. I
Okay,
don't think it's as bad as I get it. There's multiple problems there. I don't think it's as bad as you think it is, particularly this week with Rodgers having a good fixture.
I think I needed this chat. Do you remember what probability I said before the chat I was going to wildcard?
Yeah, about 70%, you said.
Yeah, I think this is taking it down to about 50 now.
If you want a wild card. But I just don't think it's quite as bad as it looks. There's also a couple of things like psychological, which will massively impact at the moment. Seeing players play against each other is ugly. So let's even say Saka and Jota were past fit for this weekend. Seeing that versus Gabriel and Trent doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of that in the immediate. Like, what are you going to do? Oh, Chelsea playing Arsenal in a few weeks. What are you going to do? Wildcard with like no Chelsea and no Arsenal because they're playing each other in game week 11. Well, actually, you could drift off it a bit here. There's so many things you can do. Trent will look good after this week as well.
Yeah.
For the next two. It's 2 home games at Anfield, mate. We conceded 3 goals all season.
Yeah, I don't think that will last, but
fine. But he's not an immediate problem for you.
No, correct.
He's not. He's not in a position where you've got to sell.
No.
Clearly, because you've got 5 players flagged at the moment, you've got to do something. But I don't think that involves doing everything. Like, I mean, if you wild card now, how many Tottenham going?
I probably would go for 2, to be fair. Like, I think Porro would 100% be in. It's just then I'd need to have a look at structure-wise if I'd go Solanke or like a Wood or Calvert-Lewin or Jimenez or something. I'd say 2 possibly.
Teams with the best fixtures on my ticker say 12 to 16, right? Brighton, which
Hmm.
admittedly you have coverage of, but just
The wrong
it's
ones.
flag
Yeah.
central. I get it. Villa,
Okay.
Ipswich, Newcastle, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Chelsea.
Yeah, they're not the ones I want to be steaming into on wildcard. It's interesting. If I did wildcard, I don't think I'd have any Arsenal right now. I think I'd look to get them back in through free transfers from game week 12. I think I would go Palmer on wildcard.
Of course you would.
Yeah, but yeah, the rest of those teams, I think I'd probably go Acuna as like a facilitating forward, but not sure about
The
the rest.
biggest thing as well is, although I've said obviously they're playing Tottenham in game week 12, but game week 12 is also going to give you confliction as well, right? Solanke, Porro, Lewis, Haaland.
Yeah.
You could come off of all of it and restructure. If you decide structure wise you want to go without Haaland in 12 and Saka's fit, or you want to go right Palmer, Salah, this sort of thing. Um, Jackson's massively on radar for me. Come back to Watkins. Watkins feels like someone you can go without the next few, I think. We might want to come back to players like that. So I think, yeah, he doesn't look great, but I think also remember he doesn't look great for many other people because everyone's going to have these conflictions, whether it's this week, Arsenal, Liverpool, or it's Chelsea, Arsenal in a couple of weeks. There's going to be conflictions for everyone in the next 3 weeks or so. Plus, the majority of people have had a bad week,
Yeah.
myself and you included. And the instinct off of bad is to rip shit up. And as Suj often says, and he said it again on Monday, sometimes the best thing to do after a bad week is look at your team and go, is it that bad? Are these players okay? Now, clearly, in your case, if Saka and Jota are both ruled out of the weekend, you are going to want to move that. And you may want to anyway, by virtue of the fixtures that the two teams have in the immediate. I think you'd be better off waiting for 12. I really don't like this 3 week period for wildcards,
Interesting.
personally.
Yeah, no, it's definitely given me a new perspective that I hadn't considered. So yeah, appreciate it. I
But
haven't
if you
made up
want
my
to do
mind.
it, do it. Don't
Yeah, no, of
let me
course.
talk you out of it. If you feel like you've got to do it, wild card should be personable, right? So if you like, nah, actually, I'd take your points, but I really want a wild card. Please do, right? Because there's so many decision branches off of a wild card that you can implement now if you want to and study it properly.
I'm just gonna sit down on Pete's site and because I've not actually put together any drafts to see what it would look like. So I've heard you say about some of the fixtures with the good, sorry, some of the teams with the good fixtures coming up, but I've not actually put it into a draft to see what it would look like. So I think I need to sit down, do that, and then reassess come Friday.
I think in 12 there'll be a lot of scrambling.
Yeah,
Yeah, to oh my god, shit! I've got to get Palmer or Havertz, Saka, get the right Watkins, get these right players back in place. I think there's going to be some scrambling. In fact, I'm considering buying players this week who don't have great fixtures in the next three to get it ready.
just to have it ready. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Visionary.
you'll get a spoiler for one of them players most likely on tomorrow's Clash of Correspondents, which is Chelsea versus Newcastle with Gary Mantle and Simon Bibby. Talk to me about Euro Focus, the team that Chelsea are playing in Europa Conference League this week, Clayton.
Yeah, Panathinaikos. So in the Europa Conference League, that's Chelsea's opponent this week. Yeah, they're another one like some of the others we've covered. I think most people would have heard of them. I'd always consider them one of Greece's most famous clubs, alongside the likes of Olympiakos, AEK Athens and stuff. But yeah, they were founded in 1908. And yeah, major honours, bloody hell. They've won 20 Greek Super League titles, 19 Greek Cups. The Greek Super Cup, they've won three times, but they haven't won the league since 2010. So they've kind of fallen off a bit, to be honest. But
One in 20 years, I think.
I was at one in
I
20.
think
Oh,
so.
wow.
Yeah.
I saw, I think it was on Wikipedia, ironically. It was the last one was in 2010. But yeah, they had some very good success in the 70s, and I didn't realize. So their greatest achievement in Europe came in 1971, and they reached the European Cup final. They lost to Ajax, but getting there was obviously a big fate.
Beat Everton in quarterfinals en route.
They did, yeah.
And
Do you know who
the
their manager was?
Everton at the time,
No, no,
crap.
not Everton, Panathinaikos.
Yes, I do. It's Ange
Oh,
Postecoglou, who very much is inspired by Ferenc Puskás, the great Hungarian player, was Panathinaikos manager. Yes.
yeah. Did you know that before this week?
I know
When
everything, Clates.
that
No, I had no
Oh,
clue. No.
okay. Yeah, because I was doing my research yesterday and I was like, oh wow, that's the Puskas. Yeah, the award was famously named after, played for Real Madrid. So yeah, he was the manager in that period. They've struggled a lot financially. So obviously Greece as a country financially has been in a lot of bother, and I think the kind of mid 2000s is the best way to put that timeline wise. But yeah, they've had a lot of change throughout their history. So I said they were founded in 1908, but then in 1924, they actually adopted the shamrock as their emblem, and that was to symbolize unity and good fortune. And over the years, they then expanded um, their footballing
It's
activity. Stadium,
believed that that came about. I forget the gentleman's name. It came about because of someone who'd run at the 1908 Olympics, which I
oh
think
wow,
was the year they was founded. Who had this white shirt with this big shamrock on it,
oh okay,
and he was a Canadian Irish runner. So people think, hang on, that's an Irish thing. Well, there you go. And Panathinaikos obviously adopted the colours green and white,
oh interesting.
predominantly
But
green.
yeah, even stadium wise, they've moved around a bit to be fair. So.
Have they?
Uh, God, do you want to take that video? I feel like you got very excited
I
by
mean,
that.
I took a screen grab, right? So they are potentially moving stadium in the
Yeah.
next couple of years to, it's been called the Botanicos Stadium. Hope it's going to be a 40,000 seat stadium. This was first getting built, I believe, around about 15 years ago,
Yep.
and it's finally being given the green light to push through to a 40,000 capacity, which would be competitive with AEK recently, obviously built a fairly new venue which held the Conference League final last year. Olympiacos Stadium is a relatively newish build as well. So Panathinaikos, they've got this stadium which is currently it's got a capacity of 15,000. I actually remember Arsenal playing there in the 2000s, and it did look something, the kind of standing behind the goals, no terrace, no roof, stuff like that behind the goals. It did look like a shack basically. But my team played them. In fact, were the last English team to play them in which was in Europa League in 12-13 season. I think I've got that right. And we played them in the Olympic Stadium in Athens. They have moved backwards and forwards since 1984, like you wouldn't believe. So they played in their home stadium, the Leoforos, up to 84. Then they went to the Olympic Stadium for 4 years. Then they went back for a year. Then they went back to the Olympic Stadium till 2000. Then they went back for 5 years. Then they went back to the Olympic Stadium for 2 years. Then they went back for another year. And they went to the Olympic Stadium for 5 years. You lost by this point. This has
Yeah,
continued.
I
This has
know
continued.
it's a constant yo-yo.
I think part of it as well was um, the stadium would no longer meet UEFA requirements.
Yeah.
So they were having to play European games at the stadium in Athens. Now, of course, venue wise, that stadium in Athens has held European Cup finals where Milan beat Liverpool in 2007. It was also where Milan famously destroyed Barcelona in the Champions League final in the early 90s as well. It's a massive stadium, holds like 67,000 or so. So obviously you can pack them in for that, whereas you've got this small stadium that's falling apart, basically, unfortunately. It has had some work done on it, but the capacity is very low, basically. And I think it's come down even further because they've put seating in behind the goals and
Yep.
stuff like that to try and modernize it somewhat. So they've kept ground hopping, basically. And obviously over the last few years, they hadn't been in European competition as much. Actually did get banned for a couple of years because of failure to meet FFP requirements, actually. And of course, they've got back into Europe this year. So guess what? Gone back to the Olympic Stadium.
Yeah.
Weird.
Very weird. They're not doing great this year. I had a look, they're sixth in their
No.
league, but
Chelsea
yeah.
going to really struggle.
I think it'll be comfortable for their Chelsea second string team, but yeah, it was quite cool learning about them, to be fair. And I think that's the thing. Like, I spoke a little bit about the financial difficulty. I think I've been aware of kind of Greece as a country and their financial struggles. I think it's when you kind of go and look specifically at one of the clubs, that's where you start to realize, damn, yeah, they've really been through it.
I remember them playing in the Emirates Cup, actually. And I was working in a boozer at the time. And we used to get posters ordered for like big games that you'd put on display and stuff. Now, obviously, this wasn't a big game, and they didn't have anything in stock that they would do for it. But bearing in mind where the pub was in Crouch End, it's like, well, let's advertise that football's starting again soon and get people in for the football, because you remember it's cups like all day Saturday and Sunday, isn't it? Let's
Yeah.
get people in for it. And I remember trying to advertise. It's like Arsenal versus Panathinaikos. Can you imagine how many times I had to rewrite Panathinaikos? Not because I couldn't spell it, because trust me, I looked enough times. You just kept going off the page, mate.
No, it's too long. Yeah.
I can't get this right. So eventually, I made my own poster. Yeah, they've played you 8 times,
8 times. Wow.
which is the most. They've had games against Liverpool, Manchester United as well. And I said that their last meeting with an English team was against my club in 2013. We drew 1-1 out there. Michael Dawson scored, and we
Did you
beat
go?
them. No, no, it
No.
didn't. No, we beat them 3-1 at home. So historical name, them and Olympiacos, historically the two biggest names. For the younger listeners and viewers, you're probably more familiar with Pauk now, who have really come into the gauge for their competitiveness in European competitions recently. I mean, they were Conference League quarterfinal, semi-finalists
Not sure.
last year. It was a possibility of it being an all-Greek final at one stage, wasn't there? Last season in the Conference League. So another historical name, financials is the big reason. Yeah, what they also did in the noughties, where it was in the Champions League quite a bit, they gambled a bit money wise, and inevitably had to sell a lot of players. I think there was one summer they spent 35 million.
Wow.
Just no chance that they would do that now.
No.
That this is going back like 15 years, so that's sizable then. And of course, it doesn't work. You don't meet the targets of what you need financially. Asset stripped, and now failing to compete properly with Olympiacos, PAOK, AEK Athens a little bit, as you'd mentioned as well.
Yep. Lovely stuff.
They might
What
be
have...
thinking, why always me?
Oh, Mario Balotelli. What's he done on this day?
Well, on this day
Was
in
it the 6-1?
2011, Mario Balotelli put a shirt over his head for what I believe is the most iconic Premier League celebration of all time. It just one of them absolutely perfect moments. Yes, on this day is from 2011 when Manchester City won 6-1 at Manchester United. What do you remember most, Clay? Do you remember that City won 6-1 at United? Or do you remember Mario Balotelli putting a shirt over his head and saying, why always me?
Do you know what? Neither. I remember David Silva's cross
Oh,
through the ball pass to Edin Dzeko, I want to say it was.
sorry if I just sounded like, particularly for the audio listeners, like I just had an
Gary
orgasm.
Neville.
It's like one of the great assists. The ball comes, it's for the final goal. The ball comes to him and it comes at him as pace, and he kills it like on the instep on the volley, and the ball goes up. And it is one of them, I suppose you can try at 5-1 up in injury time. And he's hit across this beautiful volley,
Beautiful.
almost at a lower level, but think like Zidane's goal against Leverkusen in the Champions League final, that kind of angle of strike, but from a lower position.
That
And it just fizzes straight into, and Dzeko don't even have to break stride, just runs through and scores.
Yeah, that I remember watching that game live actually, but that's the moment that stands out to me, to be honest. Like the Balotelli one, yeah, obviously. He scored, was it 2 goals in that game? Can't remember. Obviously
Yes, yeah,
one
it's got
to
the
do the
first and the
celebration, but
second goal. I can't remember if the second goal was just before or just after Johnny Evans got sent off. They scored a brilliant team goal for the third, which Aguero scored. The United's problem was Darren Fletcher scored a brilliant goal to pull it back. Was United didn't shut up shop. Ferguson spoke after the game. He says, worst result in my career. In fact, I read something that the game doesn't even get a mention in Sir Alex Ferguson's autobiography.
oh, I'm not surprised.
Like, yeah, just forget that.
Yeah.
He'd obviously called them the noisy neighbours very famously. And it felt like one of them kind of throwaway comments that would stick. It hasn't,
No.
because of the way. I mean, this was the first kind of shift between the two clubs. It was the first time the two sides had ever met and been first and second in the league at the time. City had the advantage at this stage, but obviously at this point had never won the title. But it was kind of clear that they probably were going to be United's biggest challengers. I think Chelsea were just behind. This was actually the same day that John Terry, Anton Ferdinand racism
Oh
incident
wow, was it?
happened at Queen's Park Rangers. Was the later game. I don't. I recall where I was. I was in a pub in Wood Green, but I wasn't watching City United till the last couple of minutes. Because
What?
Tottenham were playing at the same time at Blackburn. 1-2-1. Rafa van der Vaart got a couple of lovely goals. I think our game finished, and obviously the injury time of City United was going on, and obviously just tore them apart in injury time. It was 3-1 going into the last minute, and it's finished 6-1.
It was 3-1 going into the last minute. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, Dzeko scores a really scrappy goal assisted by Joleon Lescott to make it 4-1. That's the 89th minute.
Wow.
But then rather than just going, okay, it's a bad day, don't get humiliated here, United, being as United were quite often, still went forward despite being a man short as well, and got caught out a couple of times. With Silva and Dzeko both end up with one-on-ones to complete a historic route. I also don't know if people remember that the relevance of it on the final table.
Well, didn't wasn't that the year that Aguero did his Aguero moment?
Correct.
Yeah.
So City won the league on goal difference
Ah, of
by
course.
eight
So
goals.
if they shut up, oh, okay, 8 goals. Never mind.
Why? With City had won 2-1, you're taking four each off the two teams' totals.
True. Oh
City,
shit.
City,
So
by the way, would have won on goals scored for those interested. And
okay.
of course, this and it's sliding doors. I'm sure other things would have changed if City had won that game 2-1. But actually, the manner of the 6-1, a little bit a la England and Germany, we spoke about in one of our patron pieces a couple of weeks ago. The 5-1 mattered from a goal difference perspective. From this, the 6-1 actually mattered.
I
The
don't feel
fact that
like I
City
see.
won it handsomely mattered at the end of the season. Even if imagine they'd won 2-1 and just won all their games differently and end on the same points. Well, it might have been who scores the most goals wins on the
Yeah,
final
you can
day.
go and find any specific
Of course
game
you
like
could.
that. But yeah, that's interesting though. Didn't realize that or make that connection.
City obviously went on and won the title, as you said, with the Aguero, the QPR game of final day. United would ultimately obviously finish second. United would regain their title the following season as City somewhat underperformed, and obviously Ferguson would leave his role to much shock at the end of that season. Balotelli is the iconic image of it. You'd almost expect in a victory like that, or whoever scored the sixth goal. There's a nice image of Dzeko giving it like six fingers after the sixth goal, but the iconic image is Balotelli. And the Why Always Me thing came about a lot because obviously he was under so much media scrutiny. People thought it was moody. I didn't realize it was only 2 days after he'd set the firework off in his house.
Yeah. Oh shit, I remember that. Yeah.
Everybody does. Everybody remembers it like they were there. Everybody's got a visualization of what it looked like being in Mario Balotelli's probably mansion, setting off a fireworks. It's obviously in the build up to this, he was getting incredible stick.
As in, I remembered the incident, but I didn't remember that it was around that time 2 days before, which then prompted the show.
But also, what interestingly happened as well, and I think this really changed a narrative where City's season could have actually hit the skids. A couple of weeks earlier, City had lost in Munich against Bayern Munich in the Champions League, and Carlos Tevez had refused to come on. That's the
Oh.
legend of the story. It's always been denied, but supposedly Mancini like asked him to come on or warm up, and he refused. So Tevez ended up on gardening leave, effectively for like 6 months, and they brought him back around about
Was it against
March
Norwich he
time.
came back? I'm sure I remember.
No,
Oh
it was
no.
against. I think those was his first goals. They won 6-1 at Norwich. I know the
Oh,
game we're
because I
talking
remember he
about,
did the golf celebration, didn't he?
but I think he actually came back in a night game that people might not remember, where they were 1-0 down at home to Chelsea and won 2-1. Um,
That
I
City.
don't think he scored, but that's the game he got reintroduced as a substitute. And Tevez played a lot, obviously in then the sort of April May period to kind of help them get over the line. But Tevez was taken off during the game against QPR, and Balotelli's only assist of that whole season was
Ah,
for Sergio
so the
Aguero.
big one. That City team, that forward group of Tevez,
Oh,
Balotelli, Dzeko, and Aguero. That's crazy.
David Silva, for the younger listeners and watchers, maybe not have seen as much of him.
Unbelievable player.
Yeah, incredibly talented. City have done quite well through the likes of Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden emerging, and of course Kevin De Bruyne to mask the absence of losing that player was brilliant. You could give him the ball anywhere, and it was
Yeah.
safe. Brilliant footballer. That's on this day from 2011. And that's one for the United fans who keep saying, James, you keep picking United victories. I told you there'd be a bad one coming, didn't I?
Lovely stuff. What
As said, next up tomorrow, Clash of Correspondents, Chelsea v Newcastle with Gary Mantle and Simon Bibby. I'm going to be streaming at 9:30 a.m. on Friday for Ask James. Probably do about 45 minutes or so because it's a Friday deadline. Deadline stream will be at 5:30 p.m. UK time on YouTube as well. You want to sing us out, Clate?
No, but I will remind you for the deluded Arsenal comment around this time last year, what the Tottenham fan conversations were. We couldn't, could we? That's all I wanted to say.
You know we were piss taking, right? You know
Oh,
what
of
that is?
course,
Could
of
we?
course, of course,
Could we?
of course.
I will tell you to leave on that Sean Norton, our Everton correspondent, was having a bit of banter on our Everton Slack channel yesterday because Everton's data obviously looks much better over the last four than it did the first four. Yeah, but you didn't have Tottenham away and Aston Villa away in the last four, did you? Um, and Gary Mantle got involved, and they were digging me out for that, weren't they? Oh yeah, it might fall away like Tottenham did after 10 games last year, and then it turned into me falling away at my FPL season. I said, well, I've got 2 good weeks to go then before it all disappears like it did for Tottenham last year, and was very quickly reminded, no, James, you don't have Haaland. I think that will be this week. That is all for the Clayton and James show, everyone. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.